Political correctness. Political correctness is America's newest form of intolerance, and it's especially pernicious because it comes disguised as tolerance. It presents itself as fairness, yet attempts to restrict and control people's language with strict codes and rigid rules. I'm not sure that's the way to fight discrimination. I'm not sure silencing people or forcing them to alter their speech is the best method for solving problems that go much deeper than speech.
Those are the words of the late stand-up comedian George Carlin, and I believe he summed up political correctness straight to its very core. Political correctness is inherently authoritarian and is married to censorship and thought policing. In this speech, I will be summarizing why political correctness kills comedy, how it attacks free thought and free speech, and why we need to do our part to prevent it from going any further. However, before I do, I feel the need to address something. Throughout this speech, questions of my political positioning will come up. However, I would like to mention that the criticism of political correctness has no correlation with political alignment, and I would oppose PC culture regardless of my political position. Back from the 70s to the early 2000s, the conservative right used political correctness to ban music like Marilyn Manson and violent video games like Doom. And today, it's the left that uses political correctness to shut down ideas and take away platforms from conservative speakers and viewpoints. Political correctness stands in the direction of the mainstream and popular culture and attacks anything that dares to go against the grain. And nobody is more known for going against the grain of culture than comedians. Comedy is designed to challenge and break down barriers because humor has no loyalty. People claim that some subjects are too taboo to joke about, but I and many others respectfully disagree. Comedy is a coping mechanism that is designed to help human beings live through bad situations. For example, I have several friends who have suicidal depression, and every single one of them without fail has told me how jokes about suicide have helped them to handle their situation and even get out of it safely. Comedy helps people, especially in the worst situations. But say if we were to start censoring comedy or topics to joke about, who would decide what is okay and what isn't? A joke about suicide may offend one person and save the life of another. And this leads me into my next point. Freedom of speech cannot be restricted due to offense taken or feelings hurt. This position may seem unsympathetic, but I assure you it's crucial for a free society. Political correctness attacks free thought and free speech. I wish to use a recent example that you may or may not have heard about. The riots that broke out in Berkeley shutting down the guest panel of conservative speaker Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Milo, he is a very provocative and in some cases extreme speaker. Almost every talk he has is accompanied by protest. However, when he went to Berkeley, there was a full-blown riot. People looted the streets, attacked Milo's supporters, and one man even got shot, all to prevent a man from speaking to an audience. Now, I don't care if you agree with Milo or not. The point is that this mentality is not only counterproductive, but dangerous. My friend once told me that all ideas deserve a speaker, a platform if they earn one, and an audience if they create one. No ideas should be restricted from being expressed. Now don't get me wrong, I do not believe that all ideas are equal in their quality, but instead I believe that all ideas are equal in their right to exist. All ideas, good or bad, deserve a voice. We cannot place restrictions on bad ideas, because you can't objectively distinguish good ideas from bad ideas. The reason being that all opinions will offend someone. There is no exception. Censorship never helps. The key to fighting bad ideas is to challenge and criticize them, not censor them. When you use censorship, you make the advocate of the idea a martyr and expand their voice, and you also take the risk of shutting down something that will potentially make society better. Political correctness encourages and sometimes enforces an environment where some things cannot be said or thought. People will not speak their mind for fear of being attacked and even losing their jobs. Political correctness creates an environment that leads people to make decisions based on the feelings of others instead of honesty or truth. For example, thousands of Americans throw away their bodies to an obesity crisis because people shouldn't feel ashamed about their bodies. Well, I'm sorry, but reality hurts, and all people, me included, need tough love to break us out of our self-destructive safe spaces. Now, some of you may be wondering, why should we care about all of this? Well, put simply, political correctness poisons society. Corporations push PC principles because political correctness makes them money. The general public does not like to be challenged, and by cleaning up the people's hurtful freedom, corporations can sell products by the truckload. Back this up with a never-ending tide of overbearing ideologues, and you will find that political correctness escalates with each passing day, until we find ourselves reading headlines like, "Want equality? Curtail free speech." Through PC culture, we have created a generation that is weak and unprepared for the conflict of this world. All you need to do is simply take a look at the very concept of college safe spaces. In other words, pandering spaces where adults with the minds of children isolate themselves from any sort of offense with blankets and cookies. And I wish I was making this up. Last year, video surfaced at Yale University of a student taking offense by one of the professors, declaring,
"As your position as master, it is your job to create a place of comfort and home for the students that live in Silliman." It is not about creating an intellectual space. It is not. Do you understand that? It's about creating a home here. You are not doing that.
Recently, Canada has passed a bill of law that fines people over misgendering someone. Listen, I'm very understanding of trans people, but censoring language over the threat of law and punishment is unacceptable. A society that restricts people's speech is not a free society. We must fight against the suppression of thought and speech. We need to put our foot down and tell politically correct ideologues that this has gone far enough, and we must oppose laws like this that threaten free speech. Listen, a free society will always have bad people and hurt feelings. But if we restrict the thoughts and speech of some, then we open restrictions up to everybody. And then, eventually, we'll lose our humor, criticism, and eventually, freedom.
So the idea that you have to be protected from any kind of uncomfortable emotion is one I absolutely do not subscribe to. And a fellow that I helped write to books about psychology and psychiatry. He was a renowned psychiatrist in London called Robin Skinner, said something very interesting to me. He said, if people can't control their own emotions, then they have to start trying to control other people's behavior. And when you're around super sensitive people, you cannot relax and be spontaneous because you've no idea what's going to upset them next. All humor is critical. And if you start saying, oh, we mustn't criticize or offend them, then humor's gone. With humor goes a sense of proportion. And then as far as I'm concerned, you're living in 1984.